Educators at Lucy Laney Elementary in North Minneapolis know it's controversial, but invite you to listen to their own linguistic revolution.
That will not make them feel like foreigners in a foreign land from the second they walk into the doors.
Honoring the home dialect of students at a school where the majority of kids are African American.
Let me ask you, Professor Von Cook, thank you for joining us this evening. I'd like to know a little bit about this Ebonics. Now, let's just take a simple phrase, I'm here. In French, je suis ici. Would you please give me that sentence in Ebonics? I'm here.
Well, let me just say, first of all, that there are different areas in Ebonics, in the language, that differ from standard English. You cannot translate every single sentence differently because every single sentence is not different.
But can you say in Black English, I'm here? I'd just like to know what is Black English. I'm here, simple sentence.
Well, let me say what you could say. If you say she's here, you can say she here.
She here.
That's right, she here, with the absence of that verb that we call the copula. It generally does not happen with I.
Got it.
That's evidence of the systematic
bad example
nature.
I gave you. She here.
Right, she here.
Now, Ms. Von Cook, that's just bad English, isn't it? How could you say that's a language?
No, that's different English.
No,
that's
it's
not
bad English.
That's not, but that's your opinion that it's bad.
No, it's not my opinion that it's bad.
That is your opinion because.
I have just a very brief statement and thought on it, and I did want to express it this morning. The issue, Mr. Chairman, has received a lot of attention all over the United States, particularly since the Oakland School Board announced the program. And I simply want to say that I think Ebonics is absurd. This is a political correctness that simply has gone out of control. As Reverend Jesse Jackson said, it was teaching down to people, and that's the last thing we need to be doing.
Listening to Reset Race, you now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race, you're now tuned in to Reset Race. Put them back on the grill again, we grilling them. Put them back on the grill again, we grilling them. Put them back on the grill again, we grilling them. Back on the grill again, we grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake. Lineage go back to US Southern plantations. Lineage, Jim Crow and mass incarceration. Redlining lynchings. We are old from this nation. You're not about justice if you ain't for reparations. MG the wise one. Cousin mother intellectual. Samantha bringing fire. Anti-black. We pressing you. No permanent friends and no permanent enemies. The backbone of the country. To win, you need our energy. You gon' see. Listening to Reset Race. You now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race. You're now tuned in to Reset Race. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Back on the grill again. We grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake.
Welcome to Reset Race. It is me, John C. And I know this is a different kind of format that you used to hearing me from, but I'm hosting the show today. I don't know why I'm hosting. Well, I know why. Sam made me host the show because Sam is mean to me. And Joey and Mud and MG, nobody helped me. But I'm hosting the show today. We got a special guest here today. And but we're gonna go around the room, we're gonna go around. But since we always show courtesy to our guests, we have a guest here. I stumbled upon one of his YouTube videos probably about, I seen him probably about like maybe a year ago. I would see it, but recently I seen one of them. He was talking about AAVE, and how it's a dialect, first it's a language and stuff like that. And you know how important culture is to us as a people, because people often say that we don't have any culture. So I think that food and language is two of the things that really show that we have a culture. So I really appreciate the work that this brother does, but I'm gonna let him introduce himself. EK, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
What's good, y'all?
Go ahead.
Yeah, all right. So yeah, my name is EK Powell. I go by What's Good English on YouTube and on TikTok. You might have seen my videos, you might not have. Like I talk a lot about African American English, a little bit about language learning and acquisition, or just like linguistics in general. I actually have no formal like schooling in the subject of linguistics, so I do want to make that clear. It's just a hobby to me. I majored in mass communications from Southern Illinois University. If I rep the alma mater, they keep on asking me for money, and I'm like, I'm broke, y'all. I can't get y'all now.
Yeah, because Negroes is broke, but we understand. We know here. We trust me. We know here.
Yeah. But yeah, I like to talk about, you know, how we talk. I like to talk about language acquisition, stuff like that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I'm boring as hell, to be honest, man. Like, yo, I go to parties and I'm like, dang, that wall looks like it needs some more support. So I'm gonna just lean against it for like 2 hours. So that's me. That's who I am.
That's what the thugs do. That's what that's what the thugs do. It's all good. Okay? It's all good, like, bro.
All right, well, I'll jump in. I'm Sam. Y'all can find me on Twitter sometimes, but not really. I kind of just be sitting around lurking, watching the effery. So I'm glad that we got our guests here today, and thank you for joining this craziness. And next up, go ahead, Joey.
All hail King Killmonger. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is I, once again, Eastside Joey. Don't follow me on Twitter unless you have interesting things to say, in which case, I'll let you know. Aside from that, let's get straight to it.
All right. So they call me Mud. You can find me on social media at Of Lineage on Twitter and Instagram. Bitter Dose TV. I got some things in the works, but had some technical difficulties. So we'll get to that a little bit later. But I'm excited for the show. Let's get to it.
Okay, so I got a few questions for our guest, EK. You already explained how you got into linguistics, but why do you think that, because a lot of the big videos that you got on TikTok and Instagram are about like how AAVE is a specific dialect or a language, and like what compelled you to, what really initially compelled you to do that? Because, like you said, like from Illinois, you most likely descend from slavery. I think he does descend from slavery, definitely a Negro. So I want to know like why you were so compelled to kind of like establish our dialect as a particular thing, because usually, people just say we speak English. We got other people from the diaspora, they speak Creoles, they speak Patois. So I feel like they get a little bit more respect in us for some reason. And they just say that's bad English. I think that's because our language is so accessible. But can you just explain a little bit more like about like how you really like got into it and what really, really compelled you to kind of like break these things down, on the World Wide Web? So
Yeah, definitely. So I am a descendant of slavery. Like some people, once I started doing this, people were like telling me like, hey man, like are you like a true American descendant of slavery? I was like, yeah, I am. Like my grandmother is Jamaican though. Like she immigrated here in like the 1950s, like the late 50s or whatnot. But like they also went through something very similar. And then that's on my dad's side. And then on my mom's side is just pure American descendant of slavery. So for everybody who wants to jump in my DMs, you have your answer. But
Before you go farther on that one, EK.
Yeah.
So we have this whole thing where we're just like, for those of y'all whose family members who were here before the 80s, most likely you married in. If you didn't, it was a choice. So you say your people came here, married into the fold, and that's why we all family. That's the difference. That's the point right there. So everybody gets that part, but because people are like, oh well, but what if you got here in 1901 and you've been here ever since then? It's like you didn't marry a single Negro in 8 generations. Sorry, go ahead.
No. You're right. You good. You got a point. Dang, where was I? But no, for like the language, so as far as that goes, if you would have asked me like, I don't know, like even like 5 years ago, maybe, like if I thought, African American English was just bad grammar, was just like, I'd have been like, oh yeah, it's that dirty English. Know what I mean? Like we trying to dirty up what you're saying, like, yeah, we use a lot of slang and all that. It really took me learning a whole other language. Like I learned Spanish during the pandemic. Like I didn't like look at the pandemic as an opportunity to learn Spanish. I had actually went to Spain with a friend of mine in 2019, and I was like, yeah, this is cool. You know what? I'm gonna learn Spanish. And then like I learned just like a little bit to go over there on the trip, came back, and then I was like, yeah, I'm gonna keep on sticking with it. And then like the pandemic hit, and like the quarantine and all that hit, and I was just like, all right, I'm gonna just keep on doing this thing. And then it took like learning the whole damn, like not the whole damn, it took me getting like fluent in Spanish and like really sitting and thinking about language and how language works and all that. Because like I'd studied languages before, like I studied Chinese when I was in college. I went to Brazil for a while, learned like a bunch of Portuguese because I was planning on going back. But it really took going all the way with it to where I was like actually fluent and could express myself like in either English or Spanish to really like understand language and like all the building blocks and how everything worked. I was like, yo, like all the stuff that like every English teacher had ever told me about like about the way that we speak, or like using double negatives, or just like taking the G off of ing. Know what I mean? Saying like I'm reading instead of I'm reading, all that stuff to like make me realize like, damn, like this is real, like, and I started doing more research and stuff on it. I was like, good God, man, like we got this whole thing, you know what I mean? Like we don't came up with this whole thing. It makes sense to ourselves. Like it's got rules, it's got mad rules. You can say it wrong. Like bad grammar cannot have bad grammar. If the thing you're calling is bad grammar can be said wrong to where it doesn't sound right to the people that speak it, then it's not bad grammar, it's something else. Like you can debate whether or not you want to call it a language or a dialect. I don't really care. But it's got to be respected, man. It's not just bad grammar, like bad grammar is like, or broken English would be like just saying words out of place, nonsensical, like where it wouldn't make sense to the person that you're saying it to. But like when people are using whatever to communicate and it's consistent, and it has a pattern of that consistency, like you cannot call that bad. It's different. You can call it non-standard, like, but it's not substandard like some people try to say, because it's an active way to communicate. So I'm like, dang. And then that really made me want to basically celebrate that. Because there's like that Instagram account, the language nerds, where they just constantly like put up like random puns and stuff like that, or random oddities of the English language to show how that works, and just to like poke fun about it, because everybody knows how to speak English, so it's not like, oh, we already know how to say this, or like that's one of the pushbacks I get is like, yo, black people already know this, why are you putting this stuff out there? It's like, what, black people can't celebrate our own shit? Like we came up with it, why can't we laugh at it and have fun with it and celebrate it, or celebrate what it is? So that's one of the reasons I wanted to do it. Another reason is through learning Spanish, like I met a lot of foreigners just from whatever random country. I was learning online, so different learners that were in different countries were like in my little group classes with me. Different teachers were from all around the world were there with me, and like there would be times where I would have to explain something to them where I'd be like, oh yeah, we can also say it like this. It's like, oh, what's that? I was like, oh, well, like black people say it like this. And they were like, oh, for real? Or they'd be like, oh, you know what? I have a hard time when you say this. And I was like, dang. So I kind of wanted to also demystify it a little bit because, like I've experienced it where, foreigners in the United States, like kind of tend to avoid us, or they'll say we're just using bad grammar or something like that. I wanted to demystify that and kind of zoom in on it a little bit more than what I saw other people doing. Because a lot of people talk about it a little bit, but they don't really go in depth and show like the machine. Because I think it's important that not that you see the entire machine and see how it works, but I think it's important that you delve deep into certain gears and aspects of the machine to really show people like, oh, okay, you guys have this whole thing built out. There's a huge system like here that is making this whole language work, like to get them to respect it, which I know isn't going to win over everybody, but I know we'll touch enough people to where we can try to get some change and get some movement behind getting respect for the way that we speak. So I hope that sort of answers that question.
Yeah, definitely. My bad, Mo. You got something?
Well, yeah, I kind of, I'm an 80s baby, so I kind of lived through the whole Ebonics phase. And, it's interesting because at the time, I was young, so I didn't really understand the debate as much. But as I got older, I realized that, I just naturally code switch between when I'm talking within my group versus outside of my group. And, I always had like a certain respect to, for, I guess, our internal ability to have our own like way of communicating with each other. So I wasn't really tripping off the whole Ebonics thing. But I think I really recently got an understanding of this because I was in a conversation between two Jamaicans, right? One had a very heavy accent, and the other one was like speaking very proper English, I guess like the Queen's English. And then the person that was speaking the proper English said, "Let me speak Jamaican," to the other Jamaican. And what I thought I was going to hear was some language that was completely foreign to me. And what happened is that they started speaking like I guess, I shouldn't say like yeah, it's like Jamaican that we come to know and to expect. And I was like, oh, that's what you mean when you're talking about speaking your language. So we have been kind of looking at this completely different. So I'm saying all that to say this. Like, what are your thoughts on the whole Ebonics fight from back in the day? And do you think we need to kind of revisit that?
The federal government has an important role, in conclusion, Mr. Chairman, to play that is entirely consistent with the historic mission in education of improving opportunity. Within its current authorizations, Congress could insist on targeting more of the federal Goals 2000 money on urban schools. It could pump more money into the Title I concentration program. And finally, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to suggest that one thing that Congress and the federal government resist doing. I hope that political leaders everywhere will resist turning issues raised by the Oakland schools into political rhetoric. There is a disquieting rush to judgment on this issue when the issue reached national visibility. The issue has the potential to divide us. This debate should not be about good versus bad, low versus high, excellent versus superior. It should be about how it is we move our urban school systems and the achievement of African American students in our urban centers to excellence. Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate the time this morning.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Casterly. The testimony which this panel has given is obviously very erudite and very complicated. Dr. LeBeau, you, I think, crystallize it when you say that the two major points of view are, one, any recognition of a non-standard language as a legitimate means of expression will only confuse children and tend to reinforce their use of it instead of English. The other is that children learn most rapidly in their home language. Where do you come out on it, Dr. LeBeau? You have recited your statistics, but I don't sense a conclusion in your testimony.
I myself am not an educator, but the results of research on effective teaching throughout the world come down on the second side. Some of the most effective work has been done by the psychologists testing the immersion programs in Canada and examining second language learning programs throughout the world. Wallace Lambert, in particular, has shown that whether we're dealing with the French learning English in Maine or Latino speakers learning English, that reinforcing the home language in the first stages and respecting it leads to more rapid advance in both languages. So that the consensus of research is that the children do learn most rapidly when they're given when the teaching proceeds on the basis of what they know when they come to school. A point of view that's been expressed a number of times here.
Yeah, so we definitely need to revisit it. And like, if you look at like sort of how the controversy began, it was because the Oakland School Board tried to say that our English, that Ebonics was, its own language. They tried to officially recognize it as a language, and then use that to help teach children how to speak, standard English or mainstream English. I don't like to say proper English because there's not really like a proper way to speak like any language. Like the standard version of languages exist because of the different variants. Like in the US, I think there's like 6 or 8 different dialects of English, but like the standard like that we come to know doesn't exist without there being a variance. Like otherwise there would be no need to call something like a standard, or but what was I saying? What they intended to do was use Ebonics to teach children how to speak standard English so that they performed better on testing and sort of bridge the black-white gap in education, especially in testing scores with reading. So, but what reporters were doing was saying, oh, they're teaching kids Ebonics. Like, they weren't teaching them kids Ebonics. Them kids already knew how to speak Ebonics. They was teaching the kids that spoke Ebonics, like basically how to code switch. One of the videos I have, I think I have it on all my accounts on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. I know I have it pinned on my TikTok. Actually shows a class where they're like teaching kids basically, or they're taking a sentence from Ebonics and having the kids code switch that into mainstream American English. And that's basically what they were trying to do. So I think we need to revisit that and actually say what we're trying to do to help out actual children, actual native speakers of African American English to like basically be able to perform better. Because like all it was trying to teach children, like all it was trying to bridge the performance gap. Like nobody was gonna get like a test written in Ebonics. Like white kids weren't gonna learn how to speak or weren't gonna be taught how to speak like Ebonics or nothing like that. It was literally just like people saying, if we teach these children the language that they're being tested on all these standardized tests, then they'll perform better. And like that was the goal.
I think perhaps the biggest misunderstanding is the idea that we are somehow teaching African American language, teaching Ebonics, if you will. We don't need to teach African American language
because they come speaking.
They already know it.
Yeah.
Our task is to help move them towards mastery of the language of school in its oral and written form, but to do that in a way where they are not devalued or where they feel denigrated in any way by virtue of their cultural and linguistic differences. Because when you begin to devalue youngsters and make them feel that who they are doesn't count, then we turn them off from education.
like even back before then, like when they were giving people IQ tests, like they for one thought that like black children just didn't know how to use like English at all, or like just had some sort of deficiency with English. But they were asking them questions like, they would show them a picture of a squirrel and they would say, "Where is the squirrel?" And the black kids would be like, "In the tree," like, which is a fragment, right? You can't just walk up to somebody on the street and say, "In the tree." But if you know what the context is, like, I don't need to say the squirrel is in the tree. You asked me where the squirrel is, it's in the tree. But they were being marked down because they would just write for their response, "In the tree." So it's like, you need to look at all of that stuff and just realize, like, okay, this kid clearly understands that the squirrel is in the tree, even though they didn't, put like 2 words in their little sentence.
Centuries of anti-Negro thinking have provided little incentive to take the language seriously, and the fact that many black children were slow learners was always passed off as racial inferiority or the degrading result of poverty and environment. Actually, a key to the learning problem is a basic language problem. This is not a new discovery. There is an event recorded by William Francis Allen during the Civil War. He was teaching a group of Gullah Negro children in South Carolina. The Gullah dialect found in the southern United States is a stylized language borrowed from the West Indies. One day, when particularly disheartened by his pupils' lack of response, Allen resorted to a question with an obvious answer.
Now, children, this is something you all know. What color is the sky? The sky. Up there. What color is the sky?
Excuse me, Mr. Allen. I'm a little early, but I like to pick up Tom.
Well, sir, the way I feel, you can pick them all up. Their ignorance is beyond me. Even the simplest question gets no answer. Watch. Children, who can tell me the color of the sky? You see?
Mr. Allen, let me try that. Tom, how sky stand?
Blue! Apparent ignorance had dissolved into a simple language problem. From the Gullah dialect, the word stan translates as look or appear.
How sky stand?
Blue! This event, reported over 100 years ago, seems to symbolize how language difficulties readily give us false impressions about intelligence. Similarly, a child may not respond if he's afraid his speech will be constantly corrected. This lack of response often is mistaken for ignorance. Through the years, many educators, personnel people, and others in our society have been aware of this language difficulty with standard English. But only recently has there been any concerted effort to analyze and evaluate black dialect as a systematic language within itself.
So it's just a matter of like making sure the story doesn't get warped into, oh, what do you think about teaching kids Ebonics? Because nobody was teaching kids Ebonics. It's sort of the same thing they do right now with critical race theory. Like, nobody is actually teaching children critical race theory as a college level legal class, but anything that deals with teaching children accurate history, like one side of the country just calls critical race theory. It's the exact same thing as the 90s Ebonics controversy.
Thank you for that, EK. I got one question. I mean, I should have asked you earlier, but I would like to dive into like the history of how our dialect, well, I think it's a language though, but people would say it's our dialect, how it came into existence, because, you know, in a lot of other countries that, you know, experienced chattel slavery, they were able to retain some of the Africanness. Even, you know, our Gullah Geechee people that speak Gullah Geechee Creole, you got Louisiana Creoles, there's certain aspects of their languages where they kept certain words, dropped certain words, you know, follow certain, you know, certain grammatical or linguistic rules based off the people that they were around. And like, for instance, if you go to Jamaica in Patois, you'll hear words that, and you will hear words in kind of structured, like a language structure that's similar to a Khan, you know, like similar to Ghana. So you'll hear a word like duppy, which is a ghost. Like, you know what I mean? Or you'll hear words that are similar to the common language because that's what a lot of those people got sold from. Like, you know, on contrast, you go to Haiti, you might hear certain people speaking and saying in a certain way, speaking in a certain pattern that's similar to Benin. But in America, you know, and retaining some of those words though from Benin and Igbo, you know, in Igbo. But in America, our dialect, like the African words that we use are just American words. So we call, you know, okra, yam. These are not like words that are like our words that, you know, this is words that are, you know, that are just part of the American lexicon. So I just want to talk about a little bit like how our particular dialect and language came to be, one, and two, why did we drop some of those African words, and how really did our language and dialect, you know, like how was it really birthed? So I mean, this is two questions I got for you. So.
Yeah, so I don't know the whole history, but like there are some differences between them. So like if you look at Haiti, like they overthrew their masters. So a lot of them, like, so they're the French that they were speaking, and there were still a lot of people that, you know, spoke whatever languages that, you know, from whatever like tribes or countries in Africa that they were from. So they were able to retain a lot of that. With the Gullah Geechee as well, like they were pretty like isolated as far as like when compared to like other enslaved people in other states. So they were able to, what they constructed was something different because they were able to keep more of like the African roots like inside of their language. A little of that with Jamaica as well. But like as far as the United States as a whole, like, and just other groups of enslaved people, like they split us up to where, you know, you had people that did not speak the same language like cohabitating in the same location. And then like if you, like when you try to learn a language as an adult, like there's always stuff from your native language that you're going to try to like vocalize with the language that you're trying to learn. An example I can give you of that in Spanish is like something we say in English all the time is like, oh, like something like he's not having a good time right now. But like there's no way to say that in Spanish. So what people say is like they use the verb pasar, and they say like lo paso mal, lo paso bien. It's basically like it went well, it went or it went bad. Like, and that kind of conveys that same thought. But like when I see somebody and I look at them and I'll say, oh man, it don't look like you having a good time. Like to me, that means like, yeah, everything is going wrong for you. Like it like it couldn't possibly be going any more wrong for you. Like it's more extreme than, you know, it's not going so well for you. It's like, yo, it's just like but there's no way that like I can transliterate it and actually say that phrase, but like nobody uses that phrase, so nobody will know what I'm talking about. Same thing with like our ancestors trying to learn English. There are things that you want to be able to express that you can't quite express, but you kind of look for a way to express that. You see that with like the habitual be. Certain African languages have a habitual tense. There are many languages that have a habitual tense. But there's no habitual tense that exists in English. Ibero English, which is from Ireland, does have a habitual tense. So like, don't quote me like this is just my own little theory, but I think we use part of how they say that because we don't, like they say do and does with be. They're like do be, does be. That exists in Irish English or Irish Ibero English. I think we borrowed a little bit of that. I've not done nearly enough study like to be able to say for certain whether it would be like a huge doctoral project, but I think we might have borrowed a little bit of that to get our habitual be, but ours doesn't work the exact same. We express ours differently. We also have different degrees of it. So like, but it came from like learning from like the people that we were forced to work with and cohabitate with. You know, some of those people from that were being sent over here from England who already didn't speak, you know, what who didn't speak what would have been considered proper English, or properly who spoke it badly, like the commoners or whatnot. We had those people, and we had some Irish folks, some Scottish folks, whatever, that were around us, and we learned from them. It's like we picked up the quote unquote bad habits from them. And because of segregation and like how we were just kept completely separate, because if you look at like South America, like more black people went to South America than North America, United States, and everything, but there was no like segregation over there. Like interracial marriage wasn't illegal or anything like that. People could actually mingle with each other, but with us, we were kept separate. And under those conditions, it makes it easy so that something like an accent or a dialect can develop. I mean, you can take people from Spain, you put them in South America, you'll probably get a different accent, different dialect, and everything because of distance. But if you take one group of people and tell them that they can't be around another group of people, you know, you redline them and tell them they have to live only in this area. You make it so that they can't like marry into each other. You make it so that integration is illegal. Then those conditions will also result in like either a different accent or a completely different dialect. And like you like put that under like under the effect of time, you know, for decades and decades and decades, that's going to solidify. So, you know, like 100 150 years ago, you could have said that our English was bad English or bad grammar, but like you can't say that now. Like there's like it is solid, like it is so consistent, like that you can't say it's bad now because it's had all that time to solidify and develop into what it is. But that came from like us being so separate. It's like you can't create the conditions to form a dialect and then say that the dialect that formed is bad.
No, that's real. One book I think you should add to your list. Sasha gave this lady named Sasha gave it to us. It's called Exchanging Our Country Marks, and it talks about how you were saying how a lot of people they kept their language. But what it talks about in this book is the reason why we picked up English was so we could communicate across tribes. So that was
Right.
like the easiest language to kind of pick up for everybody to be able to communicate. So you didn't have to learn, 10 different tribes' languages. Instead, everybody just spoke our form of English, which was still a way that where they couldn't understand us on purpose.
And there's always the issue of like the babies that were just sold away and never learned to speak African. Like English was all they ever spoke. And like after a while, that tended to happen to be everybody because like we went from just importing slaves to breeding farms. And those children of those breeding farms would have never really had any real connection to Africa or even their own parents.
Exactly. That's
Right.
sort of that's how you basically kill a language, or like it happens through generations. Like you see it happening with immigrants right now. You know, they come over from whatever other country, and maybe they get stigmatized for speaking, their language, especially in America. Like people will want to fight you if you don't speak English. It's the stupidest thing ever. But like, so they live through that stigma. And maybe they teach their children their native language, but maybe the children goes through some of that same stigmatizing thing. So then like their children don't teach, that next generation like their language, and then all of a sudden, like you're just birthing people that only speak, the native language of the country that they're
Like the
living in.
whites.
Yeah.
If you think about it, the Germans, the Irish, the Italians, they don't speak their language anymore. Not the second, third, fourth generation ones.
Yeah, it gets spread out, and it's really a shame because it's like, especially if you go to like other countries, like, and you meet people that speak like two, three, four different languages, and it's like, oh damn, that's so cool. Like I wish I had that upbringing. My best friend, he married a Chinese woman. Like their daughter is bilingual completely in like English and Chinese, that she already knows who she can speak English and who she can speak Chinese with. It's also funny, like she does not like British accents. Like she watches all of her cartoons in English except for Peppa Pig because she doesn't like that English accent. So she'll watch that one and only that one in Chinese. And it's so weird because like a lot of Americans are like, oh, the British, they speak so proper and everything. And this kid is like, nah, something's wrong. Like just I watch that in Chinese because it's bad. It's bad English.
Oh yeah.
That's
Spend a little
funny.
time on Clubhouse, and you'll find that the proper English ain't so proper.
Oh
I
yeah.
think it, I
Oh
think
yeah.
that she probably could sense the colonizer in, in, in the verbiage. But anyway, I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts about tut? Because I didn't even realize that this was a thing, and then when it came back around, people were like, yeah, our people spoke this language amongst themselves. And it's so interesting because when you look into it, like you realize like, yeah, this is, it's not like something that people are just making up now. It's a legitimate thing that like it almost died out. It's like a language that we created, another language that we use to communicate amongst ourselves. And it like, I don't know, it just kind of dissipated, and then now it's being brought back by the youth who are like embracing it heavily. So what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so I actually been meaning to make a video sort of on the subject because like the existence of tut really touches on like part of the conversation I want to have around gatekeeping as well. So one thing is phenomenal that people are finding out about it and revitalizing it and trying to learn it to have that connection, because it's a true connection with our ancestors, the ones that went through and suffered and everything in this country, and they made that specifically for us. Like it couldn't be any more for us.
Karainan saspapi kak tut fafwaluinan tut lalyak. Hashi square lolo.
As foreign as the language Gloria McKilway is speaking may sound, it's native to this country.
Mam karai lal. Tut is a language that was created here in America by American slaves. It's a system of reading that was secretly devised at a time when slaves weren't allowed to learn to read. And if they were caught, the punishments were terrible.
In spite of the risk, mothers taught their children, and the language was handed down from generation to generation. That's how it was in Gloria's family.
I learned to speak Tut language when I was very young. I heard my mother and her sister speaking it when my aunt would come to visit. She sounded the consonants and spoke the vowels, which is how you do in Tut. Because when you're speaking Tut, you're spelling the exact English word. You're simply spelling it by using its actual phonetic sound.
So Tut became a way for slaves who could read to read aloud to those who could not. But more importantly, it became a way for slaves to speak to each other secretly.
And as far as like the gatekeeping aspect that I mentioned, because like a lot of people tell me is like, or ask me like, why aren't you gatekeeping? We need to be gatekeeping all this. Why are you explaining some of this, that, and the third? And it's like, yo, like there's a way to gatekeep a language. Like Tut is the example. Like a lot of people didn't even know that shit existed. They're just finding out like, oh damn, we had this whole thing. Like, and immigrants do that all the time. Like I was saying before, maybe the parents got some sort of stigma for speaking with an accent or speaking their language, so they didn't teach their language to their children, and they don't speak their language around their children, or if they do, it's only using it as like a secret language so that their kids don't know what they're saying. Like that is how you gatekeep a language. Like, so like for us to gatekeep, like for us to truly gatekeep, AAVE from everyone, like we would have to stop speaking it. Like everybody would just have to agree, if non-Black folks are around, we are not going to use this. and we are only going to use, standard, like regular old, like mainstream American English, so that
So you
nobody can
mean
try to
kill Black
bring
Twitter?
anything. Yeah, exactly, right? So yeah, like you'd have to tell every rapper, like, hey man, I need you to like stop creating, like you have to tell E40, it's like, hey man, pack it up.
Never
Yo,
gonna
you can't
happen.
tell E40
No,
nothing. You
you
can't tell
can't tell
E40 nothing.
you can't tell the young rappers to not admit to murdering people that they actually murdered.
Yeah. Come
Yeah.
on, Joe. Why you gotta take it to the? All right, let's have
I'm just
let's have a
saying,
talk.
if we can't do that, how we gonna tell to not sell this one thing, this one black secret?
Yeah.
But hey, Joe, because we so ingrained into America, it's hard. Like we're so ingrained into America, we had to build our own, but yet they co-opt our own. So like the relationship that Black Americans that descend from slavery have to our country is different than the rest of the diaspora. It's way different because I think for one, we have a majority white country, not mulatto, not they're mixed and they can get together. These people was white and you were Black. And then immediately light skin, you got Black. Your mother was a slave, Black. You know what I mean? Like the whole dynamic is different, right? So I feel like when we started putting our language together to speak to each other, it's something similar to Nigerian pidgin, which is the language that they use. And I mean, they call it broken English in Nigeria, which is really weird. So they use a mixture of all these tribal words, and English is kind of the base to bring them all together to speak to one another. I think that it's different because it came from multiple amount of tribes, and on top of the white people that we came in contact with, on top of the natives that we may have came in contact with, and as an oppressed group of people, like a lot of things we try to keep as much as we could retain from the continent, but we also embrace things. Like we was like I'm gonna take this, I'll take this. Like same thing with our foods, with our music, like I'll take this. And a lot of these things came from pain, it came from isolation, came from pain and soul. That's why if I talk to EK, right, I'm like, you feel me? He's like, yeah, I feel you. I'm like, man, yeah. I'm like, nah, I don't feel you. Like, this means, do you understand what I am saying? Do you understand? It depends on the context. Like, just one phrase. You feel me? Like, now, you feel me? You understand what I'm saying? Like, now, I feel you. It depends on like it depends. Somebody talking some bullshit, like I feel you. That means like I really don't, like I really don't, like I understand where you come from, but I don't like what you're saying. I'm like, nah, I feel you now. Like, well, that means like I understand what you're saying. Like I fully understand what you're saying. Like, why do I have to explain all this for? You know what I mean? Like I feel where you're coming from. So things like that, phrases like that, I think that's very unique to us. But EK, my bad. What's your thoughts on this, brother?
No, you good. You're right. No, and like especially like intonation and like tone and everything is like so much more important. Like, cause it's like, yeah, I feel you, man, whatever. Like I even got to say what I was like, yeah, I feel you. And it's like, and it's like you just know you're coming across that. Yeah. It's like just if someone was in like an African American English class, like, all right, bet we finna learn how these people speak. I'm gonna get like I'm gonna take this for 2 years. I'm gonna learn how to speak like them. Like tone would be the hardest shit ever. It's like, dang, it's like okay, so like class, tell me like what's the difference between I feel you and I feel you? And it's like, oh dang, okay, hold up. So, you repeat that, teacher? Like it would be like I would hate that. Like people would just be dropping the class left and right. Like I can't get it. It's like, those tones is hard.
Yeah, plus we update our language like every 2 months anyway. So good luck trying to teach that.
Yeah, it's just like, man, like I be learning shit that surprises me, like, oh, that is that what we saying now? All right, cool, bet, whatever. It's like, I find out about stuff on Black Twitter just like everybody else, like, oh dang, that sound like child, for example, like I knew child, I didn't know we was spelling child the way we was spelling it. Like, and then like it clicked in my head. Yeah, I was late. It was like, cause I like I knew it, so damn, when did I it was like I've known it for a minute. Like I wasn't like super late, but like when I saw it, because like if it were me spelling it, like I would have just like dropped the how would I would have dropped the DE, or I would have dropped the L, and I would just spell it CHIL. Like I wouldn't have put on there, but like that's just me. Dang, I don't lost my train of thought now.
That looks like chill to me.
Yeah.
But I feel you though. Like, I got Pushing P recently from the younger urban demographic there. Pushing P's a thing now.
I don't want to know. I got an idea. With you see that? Because I speak AA. That's my native language. So Pushing P, I think that everybody understands where this might go. Like, yeah, it's a like we know. We know. We instinctively know. If somebody's saying like I might hit them with a whoop whoppy, I don't want to hear all this. I don't really want, like, the way that we speak to each other is a lot of feeling, and we try to say what we feel real quick though. So like we don't want to get into like the details of things. Like I like our feeling is the details. Like I'm not feeling that. Like I ain't feeling that. Like the way we say things with tone is a way that we communicate with one another.
One thing that I think that we all must understand is that African Americans are very creative and very flexible. They're able to code switch very easily. They can translate if they're taught how to do this, what the equivalents are. For example, in the studies that we've done, the children already have information into their repertoire of experience. But if you're asking them questions which do not match up with what they have, then they don't really understand what you're saying. Code switching is very easy to do, or translating what is being said into another language.
Well, I can see that if you're asking somebody a question and the use of the word fixing is the one they understand as contrasted with another, that you ask them a question in a language that they can understand so they can give you an answer that is competent. But how long do you use their starting language, and how fast do you change it over into standard English so that they use standard English?
I think as soon as they enter kindergarten or wherever they enter the school and they're using non-standard English or Ebonics, you teach them how to translate by simply presenting to them the model language, and the children quickly pick that up. You don't teach them Ebonics. They already have mastered Ebonics.
I just know that our dialect is special, man. It's unique to us, and it is something that is not bad English, man. It's our English. It's the way that we speak. It's our language. It's our dialect. You know what I mean? It's part of our culture. So
yeah, we got like 30 different ways to say the N-word, and none of them are racist. And all y'all got is one, and it's racist.
Like that's the only one that they can get right, man. It's like, ooh, that drives me so crazy. It's like there's so much nuance with how we it's like we can say the N-word like 3 or 4 times in the same sentence, and it means something different every time. But like they only know like one way, and they think they know the other way. They think they know the other way. It's like, oh, it means like friend or homie. It's like, nah, like I ain't mean it like friend or homie in that sentence. It's like there's so much nuance, but it's like they take, like once they get like a basic level of understanding of something, like they try to apply it to like so many other like random contexts where it just don't belong. And because it travels so quickly, especially now with the internet, it can overwrite like the original meaning. Like even something like a couple days ago, I was on a Zoom call, and the person leading the Zoom call, like she got up on there and she was like, okay, everybody, so let's play a game of let's start it off with a game of truth or cap. And she put a question. I'm like, come on, man, like we don't need to bring cap into this thing. Like you don't have to replace every single instance of the word lie or falsehood or like whatever. Like you don't have to replace every single instance of it with the word cap, man. We can just play true or false. True or false is perfectly fine. Like, it erases someone, because like, if I say like that's cap, like I'm trying to say like, that's bullshit. I'm not like, oh, you lying. Like there's more of an extreme connotation behind it than like if I were to say like truth or cap. It's like, what? Like it's too soft now. Like y'all don't took the power out of the word.
Damn, if white people got cap now, that means it's on its way out.
Hey, well, they got
everything. Like how they ruined woke. We had woke for over a decade, and they ruined it.
Yeah, they keep like white people. You have to stop doing this, by the way, turning our lingo into internet language. so you can now sound cool to your other white friends. It's lame. We laugh at you when you do this. Every time you do it, we laugh at you. I just want you to know.
Yo, like you don't need to take one thing that you learn and apply it to every damn thing. Like it takes the power from the words and then like and it's frustrating for us too. It's like, yo, just like, like it's the whole thing was like, yo, how you love black culture, but you don't love black people. Like you like taking from us, but you don't want to actually be around us long enough to like actually have like a meaningful relationship with us. And then you would actually acquire some of this stuff and be able to say it properly, know what I mean? And not have it be weird and like also be respecting us at the same time. Like that would be the ideal of whatever. Cause like no, I don't want to code switch with everybody. Like it's pretty exhausting. Know what I mean, cause like on respect to dialect, the other day, Dr. Deanna Hearn put up like a little made a post about code switching is more than just changing the way you speak. Like it's your manner, your mannerisms, like your hair, like your whole presence, like everything about you is more than just like the words coming out of your mouth. Like, but it's like and it's exhausting. Like I don't want to have to go through that just to have a random conversation with somebody or to try to hide something from somebody so they don't take it. Like just like yo, just be real. Just like I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Like if I had a message with white folks, it's like just
See,
make
now we
friends
know.
with
That's
black
just
people.
everybody on this we black. We all know what you're trying to say, but white people they confused. Like, what are you trying to say, EK? Like, now we right here. Like, now we feel you. Like, we know what you talking about. Like,
We
it
can
was always the
smell the
white.
fraud on them.
Exactly.
That's
We
what
like,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah. They be like, yeah. They be on some bullshit. Like, yeah, go ahead, bro. See that it's a cultural thing. Like, that's the whole thing about language. Like, I don't like the fact that people try to downplay the way that we speak to one another. Like, it's not something unique to us. That's something that we created. I think it's because like one, we do live in a majority white country, so we more exposed. Like our culture is more exposed for some reason, and not only that, we do have a lot. That means we have more white influences on our culture, kind of, but it is ours though. We always try to make something ours, and we always make we make diamonds out of shit. Like we don't people like so like, and I think that comes with our food, that comes with the way we dress, it comes with our language. We going through all of this, but yet we still just make something cool out of it. Like, and I feel like there's something unique to our experience. Like, and I feel like our dialect and our language is not getting the respect. And I feel like there's so many people entitled to the way that we speak. Because just because you're talking, I remember one of your videos, EK, you was like, just because you speak slang doesn't mean that you really speak A. Because my grandmother speak A-B, but she ain't speak slang. You know what I mean? She might be like, boy, get your ass in the house and talk to me a certain way. But that don't mean like, yo, what up, son? I'm chilling. Like they not respecting, like, I mean, even though they might understand like the kind of the rules of the language, the dialect, quote unquote, the dialect, they don't really understand it. Like, and if they did speak to it, like it's like me speaking Spanish to like a Dominican or Puerto Rican or something like that. I would try to speak Spanish the way that they speak Spanish and do it respectfully. Like I know you like when I'm speaking it to, if I'm speaking that Spanish to them, I'm saying it in a way like I know exactly what you, and I'm not trying to mock you and all this. Like for some reason people just be trying to mock us and all this shit. Like, but yet they love it at the same time. What is it about? What is it all about? That's all I want to know. Why? Why we don't get our respect?
It's commodification. They sell our culture. That's what it is. Like they sell our culture to the highest bidder. Everything we do, anything that can make us slightly exotic, they want to bottle it and sell it to somebody so that they can sell it for millions.
Yeah, like there's a huge market for white people doing stuff like kind of like black people, like for white people doing black people stuff, even though they don't do it as well as black people. There's a huge market for that. Like there's proven market for that. Like time tested, like been around for like centuries. Just the market for white folks doing stuff like black folks, even if it's like only a fraction like of the power like and the coolness of everything that black people were doing. So yeah, it's like truly I have no problem, like I have no problem with white people speaking like African American English. I have a problem with white people putting African American English on as a costume. Like there's a clear difference. We can always tell the difference. We can hear the difference because y'all make it easy. Y'all make it's so freaking easy, like to tell like who actually hangs out around black people and who is just emulating a stereotype.
Hey, EK, what's up, my Wardy? You know what I'm saying, Wardy? Give me a hug, nigga. I see the Master P video on MTV. He said Wardy, and I said, what is Wardy? I looked it up, and it really meant your friend.
I'm a slick bad boy, and you know I keep a hammer. I was chilling with my Wardy, now they locked up in the slammer.
What? And then I said, oh, this is so cool. And they don't have that. They respect other people's dialect and language the way that it's a certain disrespect that we don't, there's certain respect that we don't have. Like, I mean, they don't show to us, specifically. So that's my main issue with this. Like, I just, yeah. but I ain't gonna like, EK, you're absolutely right. I'll let y'all go, man.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it ain't just white people that do this, by the way. Like, imagine how,
not lying.
Imagine how weird it would be if I just randomly picked up an Asian accent and started konnichiwa.
They would shut you down. You could not, what is her name? You could not Aquafina your way into Disney. No, ever. Sir. No, sir.
But y'all got rich chickens running around. I like that song, by the way. I do. I'm problematic, I know. But the point is, like, people just like try to pick up on that Black American cool, and it comes from all over the world. And it comes down to that commodification thing. Like, America's really good at selling things, and America has been selling us for quite some time, for longer than there's been in America.
Yeah, and it's weird. So like a lot of Americans, like a lot of white Americans say that like nobody cares about like cultural appropriation in other countries. Like, but like if you look at that, all right, so like for example, if a white American like wears a kimono or something like that, and people in Japan go, wow, it's like, oh, they got on a kimono, that's so cool. Like, and they're like, oh yeah, people in Japan really liked it that I had this kimono on. But it's like they don't realize that like, yo, like they are the ones that have created this whole thing where, the Asian Americans that live here in America get like all of the hate, all of the disses and the jokes, since they become the butt of all the jokes and everything for expressing their culture here in America. So when you put on that kimono, yeah, the people in Japan think it's cool because they live in a country full of Japanese people. They're like, oh, cool, look at these Americans doing our thing. But the Japanese people right here in America that have experienced years and decades of hatred for just being Japanese in America, like they got issues with that. Like they got issues with you all of a sudden putting on that kimono and getting all kinds of praise for it when, they themselves, their parents, their grandparents, their great-grandparents got all types of shit for wearing that exact same thing that you getting all them damn Instagram likes for.
This day will unleash a fury on Japan. War will also unleash a deep racial hate against all things Japanese.
But why don't people see that same connection with our culture, EK? Why? I don't know why. I just want to know, why don't people see that? Why don't people see that the same way? Like I don't get it. That's all I got.
They'd have to admit that they've been doing wrong. Like they'd have to admit fault. Nobody like admitting fault. I don't like admitting fault, but I still do, because like that's the only way you can heal it. But it's like people don't want to take that responsibility. It's like people don't want to see like that their actions are actually hurting people and like and take something away from themselves, like that they want to do or that they find cool, like because it is hurting people. Like they just want to make excuse after excuse after excuse. I mean, like they've been co-opting our culture for years. Same thing, hating on us for stuff. And then like, yo, we still don't have the Crown Act passed, but everybody and their mama want to put braids in their hair and call it a trend and all that stuff.
Last month, Connecticut became one of a growing number of states to make race-based hair discrimination illegal. Yamiche Alcindor reports on how Black Americans often face discrimination because of the way they wear their hair, especially in school and at work.
And it's like, and they don't see that, I saw a video the other day on Viola Davis' Instagram where they had to take the braids or the beads out of the Black girl's hair that was competing in like a weightlifting competition. Is like, they don't see that. They don't see, like, they don't equate that, like their daughter, like getting box braids put in their hair, like is like having a negative effect on this girl that had to take all of the beads out of her hair for a competition as something that is, having a negative effect on her. Like they just see it as like, oh, those things are cute, like, or they're cute now, like it wasn't like she, didn't go to school with somebody that that got, all types of hatred for like wearing the same thing, or had people commenting, oh, that hair is so dirty or something like that, side comments, or was the one making those comments, to that Black girl in school. Like they don't see that. Like it's like you just gotta get like the biggest, brightest light and shine that shit like in their face, like, yo, this is this, like lead them in the path. And it's like, man, like I don't even know, like it's the like we gotta call the stuff out, but it's like, damn, it's like, how can y'all be this blind? It's just beyond me.
Yeah, I think the main issue that arises out of all of this is we are kind of placed in a position in the society where everything down to the way we communicate is scrutinized to a level that it's not seen as acceptable, but then we still have to find our place within the society. So we have to conform and twist ourselves to find a way to fit in. And it just becomes like, it becomes so frustrating for all of us that, I mean, I think it's hard for us to find the words at time to describe what we're going through. And it's almost as if we're trying to find a way to communicate this to the larger society, like, but I'm trying to find a way to say it without it seeming like we're trying to seek acceptance. It's more like we're just trying to be able to be ourselves, and not necessarily need to fit in to what they got going on. We kind of want to be able to, do our own thing, and we feel like a lot of times other cultures are able to do that, and they're seen as other cultures. It's like our thing is always demonized as if it's not a real thing, while others are seen as authentic and it's respected. And it's not even just like, white people. It's sometimes it's our own leadership. It's other groups of people. It's almost like it's baked into America. So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that. Like, how do you perceive, our situation, and what do you think? I don't know what we should do as far as, like, I don't know, trying to figure this out from the perspective of just being able to communicate how we want to.
Yeah, so like I know what you're trying to say. And it's like with language, with every language, like this happens everywhere, it happens in every country. Like with language in general, there's always been like some element of classism with that. Like there's like High German, and then there's, I forget what the other one is. There's like another version of German, and it's like the people that don't speak High German, or the people that speak High German look down on the people that speak the like other version. I should probably have looked it up exactly what it was called.
But it's kind of
Like
like the English too. The English, don't
yeah,
they have like two versions, like the
like
Queen's
there's
English and then
multiple.
like
There's many versions of English, yeah, like in England as well. Like there's like the Cockney English, then you've got like you've got like the posh one, you've got received pronunciation, which is what all television broadcasts had to be had to use, which was weird because like the only people that actually spoke received pronunciation was the monarchy, and nobody like on the street would actually speak like that. There's tons, like there's always an element of classism, the like the people in like greater Spain all think the people that live in Andalusia speak like some bad version of Spanish. It happens literally everywhere. There's somebody looking at somebody speaking the same language and saying they speak it wrong or they speak it badly, like when everybody in that area like consistently says everything the same. Like with the United States and our English, African American English, there's an extra added element of racism on top of that. So like it's something that happens everywhere, but then there's just one extra hurdle that is high as hell that we got to get over, like that goes along with the thing. Like one of my videos, I said, when you fight racism, you fight classism at the same time. For example, like I have never in my lifetime seen a major television news anchor that had a Southern dialect. It just doesn't exist. You'll see some on the street reporters and stuff like that, or people with like small news stations, but like you will never see like a respected news anchor that has a Southern English style dialect or Southern accent or something like that. If somebody's from the South, they will learn to hide it, like so that they can advance further in that career. And that's bullshit that they have to go through that hurdle in order for people to see them as like someone that they can respect and get their news from. Now, I mean, like they reading from a teleprompter, man. Like they ain't even saying nothing profound. They reading something that's been edited, several times. It's seen several people's eyes, and had the okay from the people up high to be able to say, on the news. So so like if we get respect, that will uplift that boat as well. But it's like this whole thing of people like not wanting us to advance, even though it will help them at the same time because they see it as we're getting something extra. Like when in reality, like we're helping, you out at the same time. Like it's this whole thing where everybody wants to, like for America, like people want to uphold this idea of whiteness because they think they get something out of it. So even though like the whiteness construct is literally holding them back, it's like they don't want to let go of that to where like they can be like to where they can catch this incoming tide that we're trying to usher in, like which will uplift everyone.
Yeah, if I could just speak to that real briefly, I'll just say Negrophobia is inherent to the American project. Like you have to be at least willing to overlook the treatment of how that Black people received here, just to be a willing participant in this country. So it shouldn't come as a super shock that people are willing to overlook the genocides and everything else, that they'll overlook, the constant disrespect and the attacks that happen to us unless somebody's getting choked out on camera. And even then, sometimes they overlook back. So like, I see the problem we have because like, in order to have like a real human experience, it does require more than just you. You have to be recognized by other humans. Like that's just how this whole thing works. So like, I understand the frustration, like that we aren't recognized as humans when we look around the world and we're like, but we recognize everybody. We just recognize the Armenian genocide. And I didn't have nothing to do with that. I don't think I know any Armenian people at all. But like when it comes to Black Americans, our issues get consistently overlooked and consistently it's like they didn't really happen. It's like that episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender where they're all like, there's no war in Ba Sing Se. even though there's clearly a war in Ba Sing Se?
You have to believe me, they're firebenders. They won't stop until they win the war.
Calm down. You're safe now. There's no war in Ba Sing Se.
What are you talking about? Where do you think all the refugees come from? You can't hide it.
There is no war within the walls. Here we are safe. Here we are free.
My nerds know what I'm talking about.
Oh, you know, that's my
what
show.
you're talking about.
The main frustration is that what Joey was saying, we show empathy. We've been showing empathy to other groups of people because we know what it's like. And these other group of people are not really reciprocating that same energy towards us. And it's like, how long can you take it? You know, like, how long can you take it? Like, how long can you take having to hear you have no culture? Not only from white people. White people have been telling us we have no culture forever. Then there's people that look like us say that we have no culture. People that's brown that say we have no culture. People who speak Spanish say we have no culture. You know, it's like, so after a while, it's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how am I respecting your culture and you're not reciprocating that same respect and energy that we're giving to your culture? So it's like, you know what? I'm looking at your culture. I'm looking at how you move. We're going to move just like how you move. We're going to move just like that. It's only right because we need some balance, you know? And I also want to just ask EK one thing about what makes our dialect more so unique to us, like, because everybody thinks they can just come here and speak like us. Like, yo, it's very cosplayish. White people do it, Latinos do it. Either other black people that's from the diaspora, they do it. But yo, what's up, son? Yo. You know it's cosplayish. Like, you know you're not respecting it. Like, I would never speak patois, be like, yo, why? You know, if I'm speaking patois, like in that type of, yo, why go? You know I'm saying it in a disrespectful way. Like, I'm respecting your heritage and your language that your people created. As well as, and the second thing was the double negatives. So I might say something to like everybody on this screen, like, yo, I ain't about to do none of that. Like, I ain't with none of that. I just said, I'm not with, the film, like I could have said, I'm not agreeing with that. I'm not going to do that. But no, for what? You know, I don't feel like that. I ain't with none of that. And everybody understand what I'm saying right now. So I just want to know what makes our language unique to us, as well as just like, in the borderlines, what's up with the disrespect? Like, why do people feel like they can come to us and say we have no culture, but we respect everybody else's culture? That's my two questions for you.
If you disrespect it, it makes it easier to steal.
Long, tall Sally, take one.
Gonna tell Aunt Mary about Uncle John. He claimed me and the miss, but he having a lot of fun, oh baby.
Cut. Come on, Richard. Pat Boone can sing it that slow. Okay? Let's go again. Long, tall Sally, take two.
Gonna tell Aunt Mary about Uncle John.
He says he has the blues, but he has a lot of fun, oh baby. Yes, baby. Woo, baby. Having me some fun tonight.
I can do it fast. Well, no tall Sally, she's be a speech guide. Everything that Uncle John need, oh baby. Yes, baby.
Woo, baby. Having me some fun tonight. Yeah. I saw Uncle John with long, tall Sally. He saw Mary coming and he ducked back in the alley, oh baby.
Yes, baby. Woo, baby.
Having me some fun tonight, yeah.
Well, I saw Uncle John with bald-head Sally.
He saw Mary coming and he ducked back in the alley, oh baby.
Yes, baby. Woo, baby.
Having me some fun tonight, yeah. We're gonna have some fun tonight.
Have some fun tonight. Woo.
We're gonna have some fun tonight.
Everything's all right.
We're gonna have some fun, gonna have some fun tonight.
I mean, people been telling us like that everything we do wasn't worth nothing and it was garbage and trash for years, right before they took it and made a killing off of it, man. Like, people didn't like, jazz music. It's like we actually found out the other day because was it Doris Star Tucker put out a video about how like jazz was actually a slur and that like people that jazz musicians, like black jazz musicians, actually didn't like that word and preferred people to just call it, Negro music or Black American music and whatnot. So like now I'm trying to find a word to describe that particular form of music. But like they said that wasn't worth nothing. Like, oh, it's just a bunch of jungle music. They used every slur possible to try to say that it was bad right before they took it and tried to make it a thing and try to make money off of it and commercialize it. Then when that became rock and roll, it was like, oh, they were in them clubs doing whatever. Like if you put it down and say it's so bad and horrible and anything, and then you make us like try to believe that, like to an extent that we do believe that as well. Like there there were black people saying or that were against, other black people playing jazz, playing rock and roll. I get just as much pushback from black folks about making videos and actually treating our language with respect as I do from white people. It's like it's psychologically telling people that the thing that they doing ain't worth nothing, like makes it easier to weaken and to like, to sort of dismantle the like the ties that we have to the thing that we're doing. And once you weaken it enough, like you can just take it and people will just let it be taken because it's like, oh yeah, that's bad. It's like, oh, rap music is just about like they just talk about killing people and disrespecting women and all this stuff. You don't need to do it. It's like all of a sudden, like everybody wants to be a rapper now. And it's like, oh, okay, well, it's fine if they do it. There's just a history of that. If you weaken that and you disrespect it and you keep disrespecting it, like it makes it easier for the people that want to take it and to profit off of it. So it's like you gotta fight to make people actually respect it, fight to make our own like our own selves actually respect it and treat it with the respect that it deserves in order to get people from taking it and putting it on as a costume.
Richard was so hot. If you went into town behind Richard, say Indianapolis, Indiana, you had to wait 2 months if he was there, 3 months, because he would sweep the whole town clean. Everybody went to see Little Richard. He was so excited.
But the white station wouldn't play black records. It was about 4 or 5 black radio stations in the whole country, and the white station wouldn't play me. But I was hitting big, but the white kids had my record, but I wasn't on the radio, and they would hear it from WLAC, because WLAC went across the whole country. That's the only thing that helped me. And then they took Pat Boone and threw Pat Boone on me.
It wasn't something that was done in the beginning when it was rhythm and blues, because it was supposed to be not nice music at all. So you didn't have white artists doing black music. It wasn't acceptable. But when it crossed over to the white audience, and it was a song that did well with blacks and some whites, they said, well, hey, this is a good vehicle. We'll make even more money.
And Pat Boone said, oh, wop, babaloom, bop, bop, bam, boom. And I still said, oh, wop, babaloom, bop, bop, bam, boom. And the white kids wanted to hear, wop, babaloom, bop, bop, bam, boom. Woo! They wanted to hear me. And so they were still bringing me in their house. And they didn't want their mama to know I was in the house. So they put Pat Boone on top of the bed and they put me in the drawer. But I was still in the same house.
Like, you mentioned how when people sort of dress it up and like instantly sound fake. Like I used to work at this cell phone store, and one of my bosses, a supervisor, we had like some meeting going on one day. Like he yells "Bumba at me" because like he knew, like I think I had told him that like, I was like half Jamaican or whatever, like and so like he just goes "Bumba," and I turned around like, what do you say to me, man? Like, do you know what that even means? Like, do you know you just called me a motherfucker? And he was like, I didn't know what it means, man. You know, Drake be saying in his songs all the time. I was like, so like Drake says it, but you never bothered to figure out like what that actually means. That you just called me that? And it's like he had no respect for it. Like it's just they just treat it as something they can take on and put off. So you gotta you gotta get us to respect it to get them to respect it, and then maybe like hopefully it should like in turn lead to like less people trying to put it on as a costume because then they know it's not a costume. Like I wouldn't learn Dominican Spanish to go move to Colombia. Ain't nobody gonna like understand that accent. Like in that same way, like we gotta like in that same way, it's gotta be like, yo, like why are you trying to come at me or come at everybody with that one thing, like with that thing that I'm doing when like I'm not actively doing it.
I have a linguistics based question.
Go ahead.
So do you think there's like value in hip hop? There's a missing. We can learn things from hip hop for linguistics. I could probably word that better, but I'll leave that to the professionals.
Yeah, I'm not really that professional. Like, I mean, there's plenty you can learn from hip hop, man. Like, yo, just like if you look at certain rappers, like man, like some of hip hop would not exist if the people writing them verses and everything didn't have an amazing command of both African American English and like mainstream American English. Just like the amount of wordsmithing that you have to have in order to like put some of those constructs together and make it make sense, and just like referencing things and calling back stuff, and just the amount of just insane, just like looking at rap lyrics. I mean, like, yeah, obviously there's a huge value in that. There's a huge value like in just promoting new stuff and learning new stuff, or like coming up with like new slang, like all that is a huge value in that. Like that it's something that's necessary. I mean, for languages to continue to grow and change and morph, it's a sign of a healthy language, like in my opinion, that people are willing to mess with it and push it to the extremes and make new stuff and make that stuff cool. Like, when you put so many roadblocks on a language, that will lead to people just not wanting to speak it, or like using more, like I say, anglicisms, which is like a Spanish sort of thing, where or actually I'll give you an example. Is like there's language of French, like they have really been sticklers for like words being added to French. Like they don't like that. So like a lot of people will just say like the English word as opposed to whatever expression you're supposed to use for French. And that's slowly erasing parts of the French language. So like they're constantly battling with how they want to, possibly add a word or an expression for something or whatever it is that the kids want to say, because they want the people to continue to speak French, but it's like they want to control French. We don't have that in English. We don't have that in America. And like the ability to continue to innovate the language is extremely important to get people to continue to want to speak it. So like, to answer your question, is extremely important and extremely useful.
Thank you. See, the reason I brought that up is because like I see like rap is like the deepest study into like the English language that I've ever had access to. Like I learned way more from like hours upon hours of listening to rap records than I ever did from language arts or any of the English classes I got from public school.
Agreed. Like, and most of my vocabulary is due to listening to rappers, especially the Wu-Tang Clan, because apparently they found every word in the English language and twisted it up with the 5% stuff. But yeah,
who knows what they talking about? It sounds Nobody know, like they from Staten Island. I don't know what they talking about, son. Like I don't. But it sounds.
No. Here's the thing, John.
I don't know, but I do know. But everybody go ahead.
John, here's the thing. If you study them for years, you will begin to understand that a lot of them make sense, except for Ghostface Killer. Ghostface Killer. There was a time period where he was not making any sense, but other than that, they actually make sense.
I automatically understand what somebody else that's speaking to me that's from my ethnic group. I understand that. So it's a cultural thing that we have. You know what I'm saying? Like on top of Ghostface Killer talking about I drink ostrich eggs. I don't know. Ghostface Killer, he be talking some crazy. He one of the best. He put words together. He said I been fried an ostrich egg and got on a tiger and prayed to Allah.
Hey, yo, moccasin money, one man behind the plate, holding down honey, Shalom, rock the half man Gumby, twisted, the mom of the flood, sleeping spill drama, 105.6 llama, cosmetic classical, Sloman shield, biography feel, watch me heal half of you, new attributes, teletronics, DBX 160X, compression with the ASR press, extract bass, in which the gooey do drips, vanilla supper with jasmine bits, 500 rat batting average.
I don't know what the man talking, but I know that he's smart. I know that I'm getting some knowledge for some reason. I know that it's subconscious, but you know what I mean? But that's just the whole thing with it. Like it's just, and like I just want people to respect our culture, because I think that language, like culture, is important to respect. Like, and that also leads to political respect. So then when we go into these rooms, you know, demanding reparations, everything like that, like our ethnic pride is very important. Like, you know, not to be erased, not to be co-opted. Like, no, this is the way that we speak, like, and it's unique to us. Like, we made this. Respect that. So if you do come to me speaking this, like, you better speak to me, but this better not be no cosplay and shit. Like, respect that. Like, this is just how we talk. Like, and it's not slang. I mean, slang is incorporated. Like, I see a lot of EK Powell. He'll say it. Like, slang is incorporated into the mainstream. Just because you speak slang doesn't necessarily mean you're speaking AAVE, because everybody, mama and grandmother don't even like hip hop. I mean, like some of our some of them do, some of them don't. Like, but they're not with the slang, but they're still speaking AAVE. They're still using the same. Like the linguistic grooves. Like your boy, you better get in the house. You better turn that tape off right now. Like, what you mean? I'm like, well, I gotta turn it off. Like, I don't want to hear all that. Like, what you mean? It's like, I don't want to hear all that. Like, I don't want to hear it. Like, I don't want to listen to it. Like, see that? I don't want to listen to your music. But that's like, I don't want to hear all that, boy. Turn that off. It's just it's a feeling that we have. And I feel like it's unique to us, like, you know, and that's why I wanted to bring EK on, because I feel like EK explains this in his videos very well to people who don't even speak English or trying to learn English. First time, they're like, damn, I always wanted to understand. I didn't understand what y'all Negroes was talking. Like, I had no idea. I had no clue. They trying to look. He like, I had no clue. Thank you, EK, because you really broke it down. That you really broke down finna, because somebody told me finna, and I didn't know what to do. I thought it was finished. I didn't know. Like, no, like I'm finna go in the store. Like, you had to break it down to him in a certain way. So that's why I brought him on the, you know what I mean? That's why I asked him to come on the show, and I'm happy you're here, and I'm happy to fan in. And if anybody else want to talk, the floor open. Sam, you've been quiet for a while, sis. You got any thoughts on this, sis?
Enjoyed the conversation. I really enjoyed EK being here and just, dropping some extra knowledge on us.
Hey, it was fun to be here. It is super fun to be here. Like, and you're right, man. Just because you speaking AV doesn't mean you speaking slang. Like, don't nobody grandma drop their G's or add ass to the end of a word because it's popular in a rap song, man. Like get your big ass in the like get your big head ass in the house right now. Like, that wasn't no rap song.
How you know?
That's how they said that.
He telling me to get down. I know. I see that. I'm in the house, EK. How you know I got to be seeing the picture? You know I got a big head. Like, get your big head ass in the house. You ain't lying, though. My bad, though, brother. All right, continue, please.
No, I just wanted to tack that on. No, you're absolutely right. It's but I think it. I mean, I just did what I did because I started doing what I was doing because I really wanted people to hear the message, man. I think it's another way to make some anti-racist content out there that demystify, because if, like I said before, if you fight racism, you fight classism at the same time. So like, I don't mention it often, but there's a whole lot of white people out there that do not like me and do not like what I do, and rather I would be swinging for some tree right now. But like what I do helps them too with their southern accents that they think are bad, or that people judge them for for having those particular accents. So it's like the work that I put out there like helps us, but it will inadvertently help them, and it will inadvertently help all people. Like some dude that, doesn't speak high German in Germany, watching my videos might turn around and like, tell their parents like, hey man, ain't nothing wrong with the way we speak. So that's part of the message that I'm trying to get out there to people.
Okay,
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I think we're gonna wrap it up here, unless you got anything else, anybody.
Nah, great interview, man. I appreciate EK for coming. I appreciate Joey Mudd, the whole Reset Race family. Like, I feel like this is a very informative episode. And EK, like, you're always welcome to come back on. Anytime you want to come back on, you can come back on, have the conversations with us. You know what I mean? Like, we just be cool Negroes. We don't be hostile. We let everybody get their point off. Doesn't matter if we agree or disagree with them, but we just feel like our people being connected, like that's our main thing. Our main thing is really getting our reparations for slavery. Like, no doubt about it. Like, that's our main thing. But on top of that, there's layers to it. But we do feel like, trying to bring our people together and bringing people from all different walks of life to come together to try to, not only make our situation better, make the country better. So we really appreciate you coming on, man.
Listening to Reset Race, you now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race, you're now tuned in to Reset Race. What? Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put it back on the grill again. We grilling them. Back on the grill again. We grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake. Lineage go back to US Southern plantations. Lineage, Jim Crow and mass incarceration. Redline and lynchings, we are old from this nation. You're not about justice if you ain't for reparations. MG the wise one, cousin mother intellectual. Samantha bringing fire, anti-black, we pressing you. No permanent friends and no permanent enemies. The backbone of the country, to win, you need our energy. You gon' see? Listening to Reset Race. You now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race. You're now tuned in to Reset Race. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Back on the grill again. We grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake.
Until you do right by me, everything you think about is gonna crumble.
join us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/Reset Race Network.
Now proceed. This morning's hearing, in our capacity as appropriating subcommittee for the Department of Education, relates to the subject of Ebonics, which is a term derived from ebony, black, and phonic sound, coined in 1973 by Dr. Robert Williams, who will be testifying at today's hearing, and refers to an African-American speech pattern where linguistic experts have long debated whether Ebonics constitutes a dialect, a language, or vernacular speech. There has been considerable discussion, really controversy, and concerns as to whether Ebonics is a separate language and as such undesirable, or whether it is a teaching skill and a bridge for some to perfect and learn language skills. There is a very considerable federal appropriations involvement because of very substantial federal funds which are available on education on related matters. Illustratively, Title I, Education for the Disadvantaged, provides funding of up to $7.7 billion, some of which could conceivably be used in this line. The Bilingual Education Program for Limited English Proficient Students has funding of $156.7 million. The Office of Education Research, which studies and evaluates innovative educational techniques, has a funding of $598.4 million. And the School Improvement Program, which addresses the particular needs of each school district and innovative methods of learning, has funding of $1.426 billion. Representative Peter King in the House of Representatives has introduced a resolution, HRES 28, expressing the sense of the House that Ebonics should not have federal funding. The current controversy arose on December 18, 1996, when the Board of Education of the Oakland Unified School District unanimously approved a resolution to devise a program to, quote, improve the English language skill of African American students, close quote. The resolution generated controversy around three issues. First, whether Ebonics is a language or a dialect of English. Second, whether federal funds earmarked for bilingual education should be made available for Ebonics-based program. And third, whether Ebonics was to be taught in classes. The board further stated that they, quote, approved a policy affirming standard American English language development for all students, close quote, and further that, quote, language development for African American students, who comprise 53% of the students in the Oakland schools, will be enhanced with the recognition and understanding of the language structures unique to African American students, close quote. When this policy generated a considerable amount of concern, the board at Oakland revised its resolution on January 15th, and the new version removed the statement that African American students should be taught in their native language of Ebonics, and instead the emphasis to be on the implementation of, quote, a program featuring African language systems, principles to move students from language patterns they bring to school to English proficiency. The Secretary of Education, Richard Riley, issued a statement on December 24th, 1996 as follows, quote, elevating black English to the status of a language is not our way to raise standards of achievement in our schools for our students. It has been determined by the United States Department of Education and the Clinton administration that the use of federal bilingual educational funds for what has been called black English or Ebonics is not permitted. The administration's policy is that Ebonics is a non-standard form of English and not a formal language. The issue generated one very important lawsuit back in 1979 when in Ann Arbor, Michigan, a group of African American mothers sued the local school board in the federal courts for failing to recognize that their elementary school-age children used, quote, black vernacular, thus denying them equal educational opportunity. And the federal court found in their favor, and without ordering any specific remedy, said that there ought to be something done about that process. In approaching this subject, I think it's important to note the emotional level on the matter generally. I relate to that very directly, recalling Yiddish being spoken in my house when I was a youngster, both of my parents being immigrants. And it was spoken a lot more when my brother was growing up. He was 10 years older than I, because he knew a lot more Yiddish than I did. And I can recall the difference of my father's accent, and it was different. And in our melting pot society, we all like to fit in and be similar, not stick out or be unusual, but at the same time, we all have pride in our own backgrounds, a great deal of ethnic pride, so it is a complex issue. And there is no doubt about the fact that education is if not the highest priority in our society today, it is a priority second to none. And it is a matter for state and local control beyond any question. And the federal education budget at $28 billion is in the 5 to 6% range of the total education budget. But we do have a considerable sum of money. The programs that I itemized total up to approximately $10 billion, which could touch on this subject. And we want to be sure that all Americans have the best educational opportunity possible to present themselves in the best light in the very, very highly competitive society we have, competing with other Americans and in the world competition, competing with other countries. So it is a matter of very considerable importance. Dr. Casterly, I focused on your testimony about attempting to improve proficiency by respecting their Ebonics language rather than by characterizing it solely as deficits. But do you share Dr. Williams' sense that these students at these tender ages, without Dr. Williams' IQ, can move back and forth? You said it was tested at 82, only 3 points above the other category. I'm not going to ask you, it's been retested after that. Dr. Casterly, do you share Dr. Williams' view that these students can move back and forth?
Well, first of all, I'm not an instructional expert like most of the panelists here. I generally think that Dr. Williams is probably correct about the necessary code switching that goes on. But this is one of those areas where I think it's important to leave instructional approaches like this to local school and instructional officials who can make an adequate judgment about the instructional needs of the individual student.
Dr. Taylor, by the time the students reach your level as Dean of the School of Arts and Sciences, this problem is all behind them?
I think that we find that the issue of competence in standard English is seen throughout the entire educational system. From time to time you see students graduating from high schools in our country who go on to college, who might have mastered the academic content of subject areas, but who still need support to enhance their language skills. We have in some of the legislation already special services for student special services in the TRIO program, Title IV. And these programs often provide tutorial support for students who need further enhancement in the acquisition of standard English. Just a comment, Mr. Chairman, if I might, with regard to really trying to determine which teaching strategies are most effective Dr. Castley pointed out that there were a number of school districts that are engaged in rather ad hoc sort of arrangements with regard to examining these approaches. We need an opportunity and some encouragement and some incentives to systematically examine other approaches to teaching standard English to all of our students at all levels of the educational system. We need more support for researchers and scholars who can really come back to us with data which would inform us on the strategies that are most effective in doing this. Right now we are operating somewhat in an environment where there is speculation and hypothesis making. We need to have more definitive information.
Dr. Castley.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to agree with that wholeheartedly. In the current climate, with the current polemics, it's very hard to do very systematic studies, but it's absolutely necessary to do that. So far, I think you really can't answer the question, what is the best? We do know that the approach that Oakland is using is raising the achievement scores of African American students in that school. What we have not done is a whole lot of serious academic comparisons about what the best way is to do that.
Dr. Williams?
Yes, I'd like to make what I think is one significant correction. It's been stated that using Ebonics as a transitional method is teaching down to students. I don't think that it's teaching down to students. It's simply matching the teaching method to where the student is so that that student can make a connection and move on to another level. If you don't connect with the student is left behind and the teacher's moving on, leaving the student back there. So it's not teaching down, it's really plugging into where the student is and making a connection with that student in order to lead the student on.
Dr. LeBeau.
To connect with what Dr. Castley was saying, I'm a member of a committee of the National Research Council putting together a report on the prevention of reading difficulties among young children. My colleagues who are psychologists and experts in reading have asked me, what's the scientific evidence for the cultural effect on reading? And my answer so far has been that we don't have the kind of evidence that would be comparable to the massive studies of the Head Start and early intervention programs for the reasons that we've seen here. The strong emotional reactions against the introduction or even the tolerance of the language of the children have terminated the testing of programs and interfered with the knowledge we'd like to have. So one result I feel of this controversy is that people will see the need for us to pursue these alternatives and develop that kind of information.